Those of you who've been watching me for a while know I went through a fun little saga leading up to E3 2012, where I would highlight quotes where developers were saying that Wii U has good specs and it's more capable than the 7th gen home consoles, and I had critics I'm just deliberately just trying to pull my leg, and others who were completely serious saying that they're just lying. They're just making stuff up to make Wii U sound better than it really is, and they're lying about the specs and that it's less powerful than the 7th gen systems. And it's part of this conspiracy to cover up the truth that Wii U has bad specs. And so then after E3 2012 rolled around, I got a lot of people sending me thumbnailed screenshots of Project P100 and saying, "Hey, look, the graphics do suck. I told you they're lying about the Wii U having good specs and whatever." It's just really, really silly. But we got a quote here. Jeremiah Slaxa, I hope I'm saying that right. He's from Fifth Cell. They're the developer under Warner Entertainment who did the Scribblenauts series. He did an interview with, what was it, Game Informer, I think? Let me look here. I got my sources up. I believe it was... Yeah, it's from videogamer.com. And he said that the Wii U is, quote, definitely more powerful than Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It's kind of frustrating to see the rumors and speculation of people going back and forth saying it's weaker or more powerful. It's definitely more powerful. Go ahead and call him part of this Illuminati conspiracy to lie about Wii U specs if you'd like to. You'll just look really silly doing it. Now, there's another quote that came out, I think, about the same week, where Katsuhiro Harada, who is with Namco, he's one of the directors, I believe, of Tekken Tag Tournament 2, which is going to be the first time Tekken's appeared on a Nintendo home console. And he said some things about the specs, not seemingly so positive. He said that, quote, as far as the CPU goes, the clock speed is kind of low. Nintendo's trying to keep the power consumption down, so we have to come up with ways to work around that. And so how could these two quotes seemingly are in conflict with each other? How could you say one developer say it's it has it's more powerful than the currently available systems? Another developer complaining that the clock speed's low. Well, it's really simple when you think about it. The thing is that Slaxa is talking about what he's actually working with. He's talking about the hardware he's actually working with, and compared to previous systems. Whereas it would seem to me the more that like Harada is sort of talking about like the system, his dream system, what he'd like the specs to be, but he can't dictate what the specs are going to be, so he just has to work with what he's got. And if he wasn't happy with what he's working with, given that it's not like Namco's been like this long time, it's not like these games have been like a regular appearance on Nintendo systems, stuff that really hasn't appeared on the Wii. So if he wasn't satisfied with the hardware, I don't think he'd bother making us like a version that wasn't up to his standards just because he felt like being nice to Nintendo all of a sudden. Now the thing is that he stopped saying that. He hasn't really complained about the specs since then, and specifically when it comes to the clock speed alone doesn't determine the performance or what the machine's capable of. I mean, there are older pieces of hardware that could theoretically have faster clock speeds than stuff that's going to come out in the future. It's not like clock speed is just one factor, and it's really about how all the parts work together that determine how capable and able a piece of hardware is. Like I said, it's like just saying like, oh, it's like comparing an old steam locomotive with like thousands of horsepower to a modern car that has maybe only 500 horsepower, and saying the steam engine is more powerful because it has a higher horsepower number, whereas the technology is on completely much more advanced in in a modern sports car. So he's also said some since then. He said that the same developer who complained about the clock speed's kind of low, he wishes the clock speed was higher, he has to get around that when working with the hardware. He also said that people are focusing too much on Wii U specs and that you really have to be looking at the capabilities of the system and what features it has. So that makes sense. He's just being really frank about the system and what he likes about it and what he doesn't like about it. I remember when the Wii and PS3, it was like shortly before they came out, and uh, Hideo Kojima came out, and he wasn't really a huge Wii supporter, but he said my ideal. I think he believed the quote. I don't have it on hand, but I believe he said his dream system would be a console with the performance and graphical capabilities of the PlayStation 3, and with the form factor and with the unique controller of the Wii. So developers talk all the time about like what they'd like their systems to be able to do as compared to what they're actually able to do. And I know Epic, for instance, sent representatives off to I believe Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony about what they'd like to be able to do with their systems and what their minimum specs would be to run their next generation graphics and physics middleware, Unreal Engine 4. So developers, they really do care about what the platforms they'll be stuck working with for the next several years will and won't be capable of, and whether or not the pluses and minuses of them. So it's just interesting to see all these quotes coming out, and he also said something about the gamepad, and Harada said that looking at the small screen and the big screen at the same time is pretty distracting for a fighting game. But then he also talked about how he would leverage the gamepad to enhance a fighting game. Developers, the gamepad isn't necessarily going to be something really dynamic where you have to look at both screens at once. It's not necessarily going to be the solution for every type of game or genre or experience. So and for some, like on the DS, I've played some DS games. A lot of them make great use of two screens. Some don't really use them well, and switching your attention between the screens is kind of distracting. So that's sort of the learning curve developers are going through right now. Hopefully, it'll be pretty swift, so we can get a lot of interesting ideas out pretty early on in the Wii's lifespan. And that's what I have to say about these recent developer quotes. And thank you very much for watching.